This week on The Review, we break down what you thought of our Nigeria election coverage, plus the news you've been clicking and sharing. Hello and welcome to The Review, the show that goes behind the scenes here at Al Jazeera, but also lets you do the talking. Over the past few weeks, we've seen a really close election contested in Nigeria. We had 3 teams on the ground covering the run-up to last weekend's poll, although one of them was unable to work freely. We'll have more about that in a minute, and we'll be speaking to our correspondent in Abuja, who's been responding to some of your questions. But first, after a busy news week, let's take a look back at the stories that had you clicking and sharing.
The Syrian army is gone.
He's the president.
These are the victims of what appears to be the deadliest Saudi-led airstrike so far.
For a third night, the Saudi-led coalition strikes Houthi targets.
We will continue to target their movement.
The Houthis aren't showing many signs of being open to dialogue. They remain defiant.
The Syrian army is gone, and opposition fighters are now in control here. The city of Idlib has been under the Syrian government for most of this war, but after days of fighting, it is the rebels who are now in charge.
Along with much of the journey, there was a military guard of honour and a 21-gun salute.
This country has been in mourning for 7 days, and as Monday approaches, a new political dawn begins, one without Lee Kuan Yew.
Djibouti is also home to a number of bases for foreign troops. US base gives American forces the opportunity to strike Al-Qaeda and its allies in Yemen and Somalia.
These are the victims of what appears to be the deadliest Saudi-led airstrike so far. This was a camp in Yemen's north for those fleeing the violence which has gripped Yemen for more than a decade.
He's the president-elect in Africa's most populous country.
How does it feel inside after 12 years?
Fulfilled.
It was a historic day, the first time in Nigeria's history an elected government has failed to win re-election.
Social media was buzzing this week with the hashtag Nigeria Decides, and late Wednesday it was announced Nigerian voters decided opposition leader and former military ruler Muhammadu Buhari will be their next president. Al Jazeera has been reporting from all over the country the last few months to bring you the latest on these elections. So we asked you what you thought of our coverage, and we were overwhelmed with the responses. You have a lot to say on this subject and also included us in the voting process, which was also pretty cool. On polling day, David sent us this photo on Twitter of people lining up in the rain to cast their ballot. He told us, "You will not be able to get into some inside areas, but the views are cool and we were in the sun and rain to vote." Thank you, David, for giving us an inside look. And elsewhere on social media, you kept those comments coming on our coverage. Dini on Twitter wrote to us saying, "You need to do more, especially of the incidences in the south and southeast." Bukhar Danyaya said, "Very good. Would have been better if not for the arrest of the 2 journalists in Borno." Ugochukwu Ogbuaku said on Facebook, "Al Jazeera is biased and doesn't mean well for Nigeria." Christopher Makwaji said, "I think you would do a much better job if you avoided being religiously biased." And Izuchukwu Chukwara Christopher wrote to us saying, "Your reports on Nigerian election was all in favor of Buhari." Well, we decided to take these comments and a couple others to our correspondent Yvonne Ndege, who's been reporting for us from Abuja this week. Here's what she had to say.
Well, the most difficult part of covering the election has been just the scale, the size of this electoral process. Around 60 million voters to report on, 150,000 polling stations to report from, 36 different states plus the FCT, that's the Federal Capital Territory where Abuja is, thousands of candidates running for the Senate and House of Representatives, more than 20 political parties in all, more than 14 presidential candidates. So just basically covering all of this fairly, adequately, appropriately is extremely difficult because of the limited resources that many media organizations have. We're covering both sides fairly by trying to give equal time and equal opportunity to the main political parties and the key stakeholders in this electoral process. The main political parties being parties like the All Progressives Congress, that's the main opposition, and the ruling party, the People's Democratic Party, but also the umpire, that's the Independent National Electoral Commission, reporting on what they're doing, how they're doing it. We've been trying to report fairly by taking on board the experiences, the views of each of these stakeholders, the information they're trying to communicate, and at a practical level what that has meant is doing lots of interviews, attending lots of meetings, attending lots of press conferences, covering events, going on campaigns, going on fact-finding missions with these organizations. So I think we've really tried to adequately report on and inform our audiences in respect of really what is important in terms of this electoral process and who is important. I reject the notion that we are a propaganda machine for the main opposition presidential candidate, Muhammadu Buhari. I've been at the center of editorial decision making in the coverage of this election. On a day-to-day basis, I have made sure that each of the main political parties is adequately reported on. I've interviewed the main opposition presidential candidate. I've interviewed President Goodluck Jonathan. I attend the press conferences of both the main parties that take place on a regular basis. We've been on the campaign trail with both of the candidates. So we've been incredibly fair and incredibly balanced vis-a-vis our reporting of those two main candidates. So this idea that we are in some way a mouthpiece for the opposition is completely false. Well, I accept that there has not been enough coverage of what goes on in the southeast of Nigeria and in the southwest outside of Lagos. The focus has been mainly on events in the northeast. I don't accept that we haven't covered the South-South, which is the oil-producing region. For these elections, we deployed a team to the South-South. In the run-up to the elections, we had a team based in Port Harcourt, which is the capital of the richest oil-producing state, Rivers, and we reported on how the electoral process affects oil-producing communities. We could always do more, that's the truth. We could always do more, but I think the challenge has been our resources have been limited. And also, I guess, when you look at the southeast of the country, which is known as Igbo land, that's the main tribe in the southeast. And then when you look at the southwest of the country, that's Yoruba land, excluding Lagos, which is also in the southwest, but a very populous state. These are peaceful states, those areas. And I think, yes, we do need to do more to report those areas.
There has been an outpouring of support on social media for our detained colleagues in Nigeria. Correspondent Ahmed Idris and cameraman Ali Mustafa have been detained in their hotel room for more than a week now. A military statement accused both men of operating without protection, accreditation, or due clearance. However, both Idris and Mustafa were officially accredited by the Independent Electoral Commission in Abuja. The network has said in a statement, "The continued detention of our staff without any reason is an attack on free media. We call on the authorities to release them unconditionally and swiftly." In case there is any doubt about their accreditation or due clearance, here's a look back at where and what Ahmed and Ali reported on in the last year.
Hundreds of girls here were looking forward to fulfilling their dreams. And now it lies in ruins. And the girls are all gone. Thousands of victims live in camps like this across the country. What is not certain is how Goodluck Jonathan will run his campaign, especially with fighting continuing in the northeast. But at the peak of the Ebola outbreak, many stayed away. But now traders are busy. Up to 10,000 people now live in this camp. And all around there is a general sense of anxiety. After 276 students were taken by Boko Haram from this school, 219 of them are yet to come home. The military may have chased out Boko Haram out of many towns and villages. But holding these same areas presents a difficult challenge.
Well, that is all the time that we've got for this week. We really enjoyed reading your comments on our coverage, so do keep them coming. And maybe next week you could be on the review. See you soon.